This is CBC Here and Now.
A sunrise ceremony in St. John's marked the beginning of National Indigenous Peoples Day.
We recognize the strength and resilience of our people, and today is about celebrating that strength and resilience.
I love dancing. It's my form of prayer.
Colleen Connors here in St. George's, and I'll take you inside the People of the Dawn Friendship Centre for the drumming and singing ceremony that happened here today.
And I'm sure that everywhere else across Canada and the United States are celebrating this day just like we are.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes.
Well, today marks the 25th annual National Indigenous Peoples Day, a day to recognize and celebrate the heritage, diverse cultures and achievements of First Nations, Inuit and Métis people.
Events are being held right across the country, and early this morning in St. John's, a sunrise ceremony kick-started the day. Here and Now's Enrica Wilhelm has more.
We just had a sunrise ceremony to honor the day, to honor our elders, our traditional knowledge keepers, the residential school survivors, because they are the reason that we are still here and that our culture is still so strong, and they are the reason that we celebrate today.
The ceremony included elder prayers, singing, drumming, and smudging. About 100 people took part in the ceremony today in Capital Park.
While we grieve the lives that were lost to colonialism, to residential schools, we recognize the strength and resilience of our people. And today is about celebrating that strength and resilience and the culture that we have. Our culture is so strong and it's so beautiful, and we have so many talented people in our community and so many great traditional knowledge keepers and elders, and we want to celebrate that. We want to recognize everyone that contributes to the Indigenous community.
The ceremony was a celebration of Indigenous culture.
We're being recognized as Indigenous people, which we were never. It was, a hard time for Indigenous people before. I mean, like residential school, for instance. I mean, I'm a residential school survivor. There's a lot of people here in the city that are survivors of residential school. And it helped, and the Friendship Centre helps them too.
The organizers of the event, First Light, also used the ceremony to unveil plans for a new headquarters on Kitty Road. The center will include a gym, a clinic, and a memorial garden for residential school survivors.
So the building will be fully accessible for the community. We're really looking forward to it acting as a community center for the neighborhood and a really great display of the vibrant Indigenous culture in the city.
It means an awful lot, because never did I think when I started with the Friendship Centre in 2008, I do believe, that I would be here to these beautiful buildings. Not only this building, but we have a few buildings, and the land that we got, we're after coming a long, long way.
First Light hopes to begin construction of the new center this fall. Enrica Wilhelm, CBC News, St. John's.
People were celebrating on the West Coast as well. The People of the Dawn Indigenous Friendship Centre became a popular spot for members of the St. George's Indian Band. People gathered for a celebration with drumming and singing, something that hasn't happened in over a year due to COVID-19 restrictions. Here Now's Colleen Connors was there.
Troy Bennett and members of the Spirit Bay Drummers haven't been able to do this in a couple years.
Oh, it feels really good for us to get back on the drum and pray for our people.
With health restrictions lifting, people were able to gather here today for a drumming, singing, and dancing celebration, with many saying it was good for the heart and soul.
Yes, yeah, it's a very powerful feeling being amongst our people that we haven't been around for a long time. And I'm sure that everywhere else across Canada and the United States are celebrating this day just like we are. And we're very proud of who we are. And we want to keep it that way.
I feel redeemed. It feels like I feel good about this. I haven't done this in a good while. It feels good to be doing this again, man, I tell you.
For Sam Garnier, this Friendship Centre is where she spends most of her time. But days like today are extra special.
every time I come, I get that same energy, that same relief of stress, that same happiness. Like, it's an overwhelming feeling to be here every time.
As the drumming continued, more and more people came through the open doors to celebrate. Soon the floor was shaking and everyone was up drumming and singing. For Sabrina Muse, this is very spiritual.
I love dancing. It's my form of prayer. I'm usually not all that good with words, and so like the energy and in my movement, that's my way of prayer. And also my auntie was up there, so I wanted to join her.
If you listen closely, you can still hear the drumming and singing continue. The celebrations will go on all day today, with a youth event down on the beach, and end the day with a feasting of sacred items. Colleen Connors, CBC News, St. George's.
Well, now to celebrations in Labrador. The Labrador West Indigenous Service Centre has been holding 2 days of events for National Indigenous Peoples Day starting yesterday. Events such as boil-ups, Inuit drumming, campfire songs and walks, and making jam.
So we set up the tent, then we had a brunch with a group of, I think we had about 25 for our brunch yesterday. Then we had a drumming group yesterday afternoon, and the kids were drumming, and then they invited anyone else if they wanted to participate, and then we had a barbecue.
So today we had a brunch, and then after brunch we kind of got out the guitar, played a few songs. Then we went on a trail walk with our seniors. We had tea in the Labrador tent, read some stories, and we're just getting ready now. Our next event is our preserves workshop, so we're going to be making partridge berry and apple jam. And then this evening we have another supper boil up with fish and brews, smoked capelin, smoked char, and we're really excited about that.
Okay, we have the tent set up. We have our red dresses on display, and our Indigenous Day is usually for awareness too as well. It's not only for Indigenous people, but we invite anyone to come and share in our culture and you know, share and learn and things like that. We have the books set up in the tent, some kids' books, and a rocking chair. You can go in and read a few books if you want. And we sat in there a little while ago with a group of ladies, our elders, and read a story, and we had tea, and we had some homemade buns and things like that. We had quite a few, pretty good turnout. We've had 60 or so yesterday, and you know, like, we're creeping up to that again now for today, and so it's pretty good, and yeah, we're having a great time.
At today's sunrise ceremony in St. John's, the Premier said more needs to be done to recognize the history of Indigenous people in this province. Andrew Furey says at Confederation Building, there's very little reference to the history that existed prior to John Cabot's arrival. He says that's not right and needs to be rectified. He also wants to see more Indigenous education in our schools.
We just on Friday announced the commissioning of a statue for a Beothic statue for the front steps of the Confederation Building. And we're moving together towards changing some of those symbols within the Confederation Building itself, but also moving to change the policies so that there's a more robust education within the K-12 system of our Indigenous histories that are reflective of all the Indigenous histories here in the province.
How long we have been here may never be told. Just how we ended up here may never be known.
I guess as a writer, that is the best way for me to express my feelings.
Remembering the children at the Kamloops Residential School with poetry.
A Labrador writer on why she put pen to paper and why her daughter wanted to recite.
Doctors are pushing back after the health minister says we're blessed with the number of doctors we have per capita.
Numbers don't tell the entire story.
Coming up on Here and Now.
Well, summer arrived early this morning, and we're going to start to talk about another tropical system that has developed just off the east coast of the United States, going to head our way. It's Tropical Storm Claudette, and if we take a look at that right now, it's pretty much a weak tropical storm, and that is going to head our way as we head through the overnight and into tomorrow. As you can see that track, it is going to transition again to a post-tropical storm by Tuesday morning and head south of Nova Scotia and then head towards Newfoundland and Labrador as we head into Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. Now this one is going to be similar to what happened with Bill, where we're going to see it weaken as it gets here, but it is going to bring some tropical moisture with it. Tomorrow you're going to note humidity, but even more so as we head through Wednesday. That looks like we're going to see the most humid weather through the day on Wednesday, but we do have a heat warning in place for parts of Central, and I will get into those details when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. We don't have any COVID case numbers to tell you about tonight. The province didn't release them over the weekend or on the holiday today. Health authorities are easing visitor restrictions, though, at hospitals and long-term care homes. Eastern Health announced today that there will be no longer a list of 6 designated visitors. Instead, long-term care residents or people in hospital can have 1 support person and up to 2 visitors a day. People giving birth can have a support person and a doula during delivery, and then 2 visitors a day after that. People coming in for outpatient or other into the emergency room can also bring a person with them, but they're recommending that people decide very carefully about whether they actually need that. Today was the day that the province promised that many new appointments would be available for people to rebook their second doses earlier. But when people went online this morning, some appointments were hard to get. Eastern Health has added a site at the Glacier in Mount Pearl for July as more vaccine is expected. This week alone, the federal government expects to send Newfoundland and Labrador more than 100,000 doses. Central Health is adding sites in Gander, Twillingate, and Lewisport. Bookings just opened up for the new Gander location at the Steel Centre. But there have been challenges finding appointments. For example, when we checked Eastern Health locations this afternoon, there were no Pfizer doses available anywhere. A few spots opened up a little later on in Marystown. People under the age of 18 need to get Pfizer since the use of Moderna has not been approved for that age group. The province has cancelled all second dose appointments after August 6th, requiring people to rebook their shots. Now, we reached out to the Department of Health and Eastern Health to find out why so few additional spots were available, especially if you were needing to get Pfizer, and why, if you need to rebook your shot for late August, for example, your appointment was canceled, but they haven't put any in for that time period yet. We were hoping to have an interview or provide more details, but we got neither. We can tell you about pharmacies, though. They're giving out first and second doses. They're using Moderna, so only available for people over the age of 18. Each pharmacy is booking its own appointments, so get in touch with them directly.
Well, doctors aren't happy with a recent comment by the health minister saying this province is, quote, blessed with the number of physicians it has. They say John Haggie's statement doesn't reflect the reality of the physician shortage here. It's a problem that has left tens of thousands of people in this province without a family doctor. Here in Asmar Quinn reports.
The Medical Association's president says there's no doubt in her mind about what's motivating doctors to speak out.
My job is to advocate for my patients. And I would say most of the family doctors and the specialists in this province are absolutely concerned about their patients. When they have complex medical care needs that are not appropriate for a one-off in the emergency room or in a walk-in clinic, we as physicians get very concerned about that.
So last week at the Confederation Building, physicians noticed when the health minister spoke with reporters and said this.
From a numbers point of view, physicians and nurses, we actually are blessed in terms of numbers per capita.
McDonald says that doesn't tell the whole story.
Hey guys, hello. How's it going?
In 2019, a consultant hired by the Medical Association found the total number of physicians licensed to practice here and the number who are actually seeing patients is very different.
Although our numbers are probably around 591 family physicians, he found that there was about 431 doing full-time family medicine. That's quite a significant difference.
Some only work part-time, and some, like Dr. McDonald, focus entirely on palliative care patients. The Medical Association says the upshot is that about 90,000 people in this province don't have a family doctor.
Right now, we're focused right on dealing with the fires, putting out fires, dealing with the crisis, what's happening today, what that we can't handle. We have to have a human resources plan. We have to plan out, where do we need physicians? How many do we need? And where should they be working?
Physicians who are negotiating a new contract with the government right now say the doctor shortage only threatens to get worse. They say doctors are paid more in other provinces, and in this province with an aging population, doctors are retiring, and those who remain are in greater demand. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the federal Liberal Party has announced Joanne Thompson as their candidate in the federal riding of St. John's East. The NDP's Jack Harris, who held the seat several times since 1987, recently announced he would not be seeking re-election. Previously, Liberal Nick Whalen held the seat from 2015 to 2019. Now, Thompson is a former registered nurse and executive director of The Gathering Place, a community support center in St. John's. Other parties haven't announced candidates for the district yet. The election must be called on or before October 2023. However, there is speculation that it may be called as early as this fall.
In other news, the newest horse to join the RCMP musical ride has a name, and it's all thanks to a grade 1 class in Gander. We want to introduce you to Tika. The name was chosen from submissions from across the country. It was Mrs. Kiley's grade 1 class at Gander Academy that picked the name. It's one of 14 new foals, and all of them had a name that started with T. One other winning name was chosen from this province. Tunic was submitted by Maisie in Conception Bay South.
So sweet.
Who knows? Down the road, we might even see our neighbor, the Americans, open up our border, and we'll get on the other side of this pandemic.
Not quite on the other side just yet, but starting to look a little like old times.
We head to Bay Bulls for a talk with whale tour operators coming up.
The next couple of days are going to feel really hot and humid across parts of the province. We'll talk about just how hot when I come back.
Well, as the province prepares to drop isolation requirements for vaccinated Canadians, anticipation is building for some tourism operators. They're hoping this summer they can get back on track. But some fear it'll take longer for things to get back to normal. We heard from some whale-watching tourists and tour operators this weekend in Babels.
There's 2 there. Oh, there's 3. Oh, the tail, beautiful.
It's fantastic. We had a great day today. We didn't know what to expect, just adjusting to the weather, but what a great day to be out and mixing around. So it was fun.
Yeah, we would definitely do it again, definitely recommend it. We can't wait to bring some friends and family back, hopefully, this summer.
We know it's going to start slow because we got to build up our air access. We know it's going to start slow because we got to build up consumer confidence, but we're opening our services up.
No more self-isolation, I'll tell you. It'll last a little while because we're traveling back and forth from Nova Scotia to St. John's. We've had to isolate a few times, sometimes without each other.
We're starting to see bus tour companies do a lot more inquiring and trying to make arrangements on some advanced bookings, things like that. Who knows? Down the road we might even see our neighbor, the Americans, open up our border and we'll get on the other side of this pandemic.
Logistically, getting people to Newfoundland has always been an issue, and we've spent about the last 25 years really building and trying to get that capacity built in terms of airlift. All these other tour operators on the mainland US and Canada and the UK, they've got to sell a product and they want to try and find a great product, which there are lots of in the world, but logistically places that are simple to move people to. And if Newfoundland becomes difficult, then it just places us further down in the listings, regardless of how strong our product is.
It's the first official day of summer nationally. It actually felt like summer, which isn't always a given in Newfoundland and Labrador. Just how warm did it get today?
Yeah, it certainly doesn't, but it was beautiful today for most areas. Took a little bit of time to get that cloud cover to clear for eastern areas, and that temperature jumped over the last couple of hours or so. Let's take a look at the daytime highs. 20 degrees so far in St. John's, and then as we head towards central, those numbers are a little bit higher, 23 or 22 to 25 degrees through Badger. Same thing for the west coast, but unfortunately those temperatures are a little bit cooler for the north coast of Labrador. However, Lab City, you reached a high near 24 degrees this afternoon, and we've seen those temperatures drop a little bit. Still a beautiful evening though across most of the island, and you'll notice a little bit of humidity in the air as well, feeling more like 23 in St. John's, 28 in Badger, and Corner Brook feeling more like 27. Now these humidex values are just going to get higher as we head through Tuesday and into Wednesday, as we see a big push of some tropical moisture with that. But until we get there, tonight's going to be fairly quiet. Taking a look at the current satellite there, you can see we're seeing those clearing skies finally across the province. However, along the southern portion of the island, we will see some fog and drizzle develop as we get into that onshore flow, along with some of that moisture that I was just talking about a little bit earlier. And that is going to keep things foggy and cloudy as we head through the overnight. And then for Lab West, the risk of some thunderstorms as well as we head through the overnight and into the early morning hours as well. You'll see another round of showers, and those showers are going to head east. Northeast rather, as the morning goes on for you in Labrador. Temperatures tonight going to be fairly nice, 11 to 14 degrees, so we should stay in the double digits. Winds will be relatively light as well for most of Labrador, and then across the island you're looking at southeasterlies about 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. And then as we head through the day tomorrow, not a whole lot happening. The fog and drizzle along the southern portion of Newfoundland should clear or at least retreat to the coast into the afternoon. Otherwise, we may see a few showers develop as the day goes on for the west as well as along the south coast. And then again, that risk of thunderstorms for Lab West into the morning hours, and eventually those showers will spread across the board. Southeast looks lovely though through the day. Plenty of sunshine. You'll see your showers as we head into the evening hours. And then as you note, that rain pushing in again Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, that's when we're going to see that big push of tropical moisture and also the remnants of Tropical Storm Claudette. So we could see some rain with that. It'll be well below warning criteria, but much needed rain through parts of Central. We haven't seen too much of that over the last, well, through most of the month of June. So with that, we also have a heat warning in effect from Green Bay, White Bay through to Bonavista North, including the interior. This is because of the temperatures that we're going to see over the next couple of days and also that humidity. So most areas will actually be seeing temperatures into the high 20s. St. John's 27 degrees tomorrow. Winds relatively light as well, and with humidex values closer to 30, 31. So it's still under warning criteria, but as you head towards Central, that's when we get into some of where we're going to see that warning and humidex values into the mid-30s, and that will generally continue as we head into Wednesday as well. So it's going to be a hot day tomorrow. Again, that chance of showers into the afternoon and evening hours for the west coast as well as the northern peninsula, but certainly summer heat is in full effect. 20 degrees for St. Anthony, into the 20s as well for parts of the southeastern Labrador. And then as you get towards central Labrador, Happy Valley, Goose Bay, into the 20s, 25 tomorrow. Should stay cloudy through the day. And then the rest of Labrador, certainly for the north and the west, you'll be sitting in the teens. You'll note your winds will shift as well from southeasterlies to westerlies as the day goes on, with winds gusting anywhere from 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. So I mentioned that rain on Wednesday. I'll tell you how much to expect and when to expect it when I come back.
National Indigenous Peoples Day is about commemorating and learning about the Indigenous cultures in this country, but for some it's hard to separate the tragic news that's recently emerged. Wabash writer Rianne Brown was troubled by the discovery of the remains of 215 children in Kamloops, so she wrote a poem to honor the children and to process her own sadness. In this next piece, we'll hear from Rianne and her daughter, Billy Marie Anderson, who recites the poem for us.
215 plus seats. How long we have been here may never be told. Just how we ended up here may never be known. Our last tears shed were never wiped away, but finally the whole world cries for us today.
The poem came a few days later, but I guess as a writer, that is the best way for me to express my feelings. And I guess the discovery of those little bodies kind of shook our country a little bit. But for a lot of Indigenous people, it was a shock, but it wasn't so much as a surprise, because a lot of us know that there are a lot more stories that are untold out there, and firmly believe that all those grounds need to be searched, because we do believe that there are more bodies.
We were the innocent, our little bodies left cold. We were the stolen, no chance to grow old. They thought we were the ones they could forever hide, but we were the children that would reveal the genocide.
I think that I can't say when something like this happens, because nothing like this has ever happened before us, but to see the support from non-Indigenous and communities across not just our province, but the whole country, and even in the U.S. Also, that it's not something that happened hundreds of years ago. Like my mother went to residential school. Billy's grandmother went to residential school on both sides, so it wasn't really that long ago. And I would really like people to know that there are still survivors out there.
We were the stolen, and now that we are found, we continue the fight for our friends who are still under the ground.
So when I read it, it made me sad but proud at the same time to be able to speak for our people and how we're feeling.
Well, I remember when I was in middle school and high school around South Lake, residential schools was literally a paragraph in a book. And it didn't tell the truth of what really happened or anything like that, but I would like to see it be a part of a curriculum.
When I went to school, it was a lot of talking about it. Yeah, and it was like, I had a teacher and she was downplaying the recent residential school survivors, saying it couldn't have been that bad and all that, so.
There's a lot that people can do. Just be an ally, be a friend.
215 plus seats. How long we have been here may never be told. Just how we ended up here may never be known. Our last tears shed were never wiped away, but finally the whole world cries for us today. We were the innocent, our little bodies left cold. We were the stolen, no chance to grow old. They thought we were the ones they could forever hide, but we were the children that would reveal the genocide. We were the stolen, and now that we are found, we continue the fight for our friends who are still under the ground.
Well, as we continue to mark National Indigenous Peoples Day, let's check in with a Labrador musical group that's seeing a lot of success this year with their album Storms and Prayers.
You're a distant star, more of a moon than a planet. Estuary, estuary.
Now, the Silver Wolf Band won this year's East Coast Music Award for Indigenous Artist of the Year and won the same award during the Music NL ceremony. The 4-member group lives in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. Joining me now are 2 members of the Silver Wolf Band, Matthew Barrett and Jamie Jackman. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, it's our pleasure.
First of all, congratulations on winning the Indigenous Artist of the Year award at the East Coast Music Awards.
Thanks. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Well, today is National Indigenous Peoples Day. We're talking a lot about that on the show tonight. How are you planning to mark it?
Well, I mean, every year we're really thrilled about being a part of things for National Indigenous Peoples Day. This year, the Labrador Friendship Center here in town in Happy Valley Goose Bay are usually the ones who kind of coordinate the celebrations. They're not really getting together because of obvious reasons with the COVID and stuff, but they're putting together a video actually that kind of features some of our music. So I guess in a way, that's how we're marking it this year.
Tell us a bit about your band. I read that there was a time that you all couldn't wait to leave Labrador. So what changed?
And do you want to take that one?
Yeah. Well, we all grew up here, and as many people do in their hometowns, they're excited to get out of there when they graduate and ready to move on, which we all did. And we lived away for a while and played away for a while, but we kind of all went separate ways. And yeah, our paths kind of crossed. We all ended up back home. Somehow it drew us back, and here we are, and we've been making music ever since. But it almost seemed like it was fate for us to end up back here together, and that's what happened somehow, yeah.
And I watched your Woman of Labrador video where you essentially crowdsourced images of Labrador women.
Woman of Labrador, children round your cabin door.
Can you tell us how all of that came about, the idea and the follow-through?
Yeah, of course. Well, we recorded our last record just before the pandemic kind of hit, you know, and we had planned on doing a music video of us in person and, you know, kind of like a traditional music video. But given the situation we found ourselves in, we needed to promote this album, but also needed to do it in a safe way, I guess. So and we figured everybody was home. So we reached out to folks in Labrador to kind of submit videos and pictures of the women in their lives who they cared about and wanted to honor. And the response that we got was overwhelming. It was really nice because by the end of it, it didn't even feel like it was ours anymore. It was kind of like all of Labrador's because everybody kind of contributed to it, and it turned into really something special and something that we don't mind, pumping the tires of, because it feels like it's kind of a collaboration between us and all of Labradorians. And I think it turned into something quite special, and it really honored the spirit of the song, which was about a trapper's wife and that cool union between a trapper and his wife, and often underrepresented side of that story. And yeah, it was really interesting, and I think it really helped us. It really helped float the album through that tough time for artists. And yeah, we came out of it with something really special.
And you know, it's been such a tough year. We just learned about the tragedy at Kamloops, and there have been many stories highlighting systemic racism against Indigenous communities this year. How are you processing the events of this year so far?
That's a tough one. It's been, like you said, it's been a hard year, and yeah, our hearts are there with everyone going through all this, and you know, it hits close to home for a lot of people in Labrador as well. A lot of survivors and different individuals connected in different ways. So yeah, definitely hits home here for sure.
Yeah, I think those kind of stark reminders of the past and how still encompassed we are in that terrible history and the things that have happened and continue to happen to this day. I think it makes things like National Indigenous Peoples Day even more important to celebrate the achievements of Indigenous people and the progress that we are making, and also to remember that National Indigenous Peoples Day is for everyone to celebrate, you know, and how privileged we are to live in a place where you know, Indigenous culture, especially here in Labrador, is still so much entwined with everyday life. And to continue to celebrate those things and to continue looking at those things and taking them seriously and learning about the past and learning about present day issues and how the past still affects these communities to this day. So it's been tough, but it's also you know, it's a part of the process as well as unearthing these truths, you know. So yeah, this stuff is not something that sits lightly with us. It's but winning the Indigenous award, you know, for the ECMAs and that sort of thing, it makes us that more proud that, you know, that these communities are being recognized, and we really are really honored about that as well.
Well, Jamie Jackman and Matthew Barrett, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's an absolute pleasure, Carolyn. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Canada Day is just around the corner, but across the country, celebrations have been called down in a number of communities in the wake of the discovery in Kamloops of unmarked graves at a former residential school. The CBC's Aaron Broman has this report, which starts in Saskatchewan.
Here, the celebrations are on pause.
It's about the children. It's about the children that didn't make it home.
The reported discovery of children's remains at the former Kamloops residential school has shaken the nation, and celebrating this country's complex legacy didn't feel right to some.
The 215 children didn't have didn't have their parents to be there before they passed, or not knowing what happened. And then the parents not having a say or not having a voice to be able to put closure.
Other communities have also decided to cancel events on July 1st, including Victoria and Penticton, where a local Indigenous leader made a request of the city's mayor.
Chief Gabriel also made a note that if we were to cool down the celebrations this year, it would be greatly appreciated.
The local nations are really reeling and grieving, and it just seemed the respectful thing to do.
St. Albert, Alberta is cancelling its fireworks display, which have always happened over the grounds of a former residential school. And Prince Edward County in southern Ontario will do nothing.
When we took a step back, the reality was that we were grieving.
Ottawa's celebrations are mostly virtual because of the pandemic, but they are still a go for now.
It should be revisited, but in a positive way. I don't necessarily think that people need to cancel their celebrations.
I think it's important for us to stop, to reflect, and to take in the impact of that.
Something that must happen, she says, before we can move forward. Aaron Broman, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, as COVID-19 cases drop and vaccinations ramp up, Ottawa is revisiting border restrictions. It has announced it will be easing some measures at entry points starting July 5th. Now, that's good news for international rotational workers who will finally see quarantine measures eased. Ottawa is calling this the first phase of a cautious plan towards reopening, but as Ashley Burke reports, some are feeling left out.
As Canada's vaccination rates rise, signs life is slowly returning to normal, but that stops at the border.
We've reached an important threshold, but we haven't reached the finish line. There's a lot more work to do.
Canada remains closed to non-essential travel and foreign nationals, but as of July 5th, there will be easing of restrictions for some Canadians and permanent residents.
Fully vaccinated travelers who are permitted to enter Canada will no longer be subject to the federal requirement to quarantine.
Everyone else is still required to do so and stay at the federally regulated hotels, even though a month ago an advisory panel called the hotel program flawed and called for it to end.
I'm heartbroken. I mean, I'm desperate to see my daughters.
Canadian Anna Marie Beckel said her 2 American daughters haven't been able to visit her for 15 months. Both are fully vaccinated.
I do not understand what the difference is between a fully vaccinated Canadian and a fully vaccinated American.
The big question remains, when will Canada open the border to tourism? Today, the government shared one possible way forward.
So one metric that Canadians can watch for is the rate of fully vaccinated Canadians that is at least 75%.
The government said it's also looking at case rates, hospitalizations, and ICU admissions.
Social distancing.
The airline industry says it's stuck planning in the dark with thousands of workers laid off and furloughed and no end in sight.
We don't have a plan, we have a puzzle. We have a series of piecemeal announcements and promised future piecemeal announcements on what may occur. And we're all desperately trying to put this together to make sense of it. And that is not the way forward.
The government also announced that non-vaccinated children will have to quarantine for 14 days, even though their vaccinated parents won't have to. The government says that's a way to prevent the virus from spreading at schools and daycares. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now, this is a relief to many who've been separated from family and friends since March of last year. Others, though, are wondering, is it safe? According to one expert, the risk is minimal.
I think a fully vaccinated traveler who's much less at risk of acquiring COVID-19 and being transmissible, adding that test on top of that, I think you're starting to get into probabilities of them having COVID-19 and being able to transmit that are getting well less than 1%.
The doctor also says that the degree of risk is unavoidable if Canadians are to re-engage with the world, and that our pace of vaccination means Canada will be in a much better position next month, maybe even back to normal in the fall. Well, earlier in the program, you saw a sunrise ceremony in St. John's. Well, at the famous Stonehenge site, hundreds of self-avowed druids and pagans turned out on a cold and cloudy morning to celebrate the summer solstice.
May there be peace in the West.
The participants had to climb over the perimeter fence that surrounds the UNESCO World Heritage Site. They gathered despite COVID concerns and official requests that they avoid traveling to the monument. Hundreds of thousands of people watched a live stream of the solstice celebration. The ancient stone circle is believed to have been built between 4,000 and 5,000 years ago. Okay, Ashley, we've only had 3 named storms so far this season, but already the second one is going to have an impact on Newfoundland and Labrador. So Claudette's on her way. Just how big is that impact going to be?
Yeah, so basically, by the time it gets here, it'll be like Tropical Storm Bill, which I talked about last week, and it's going to transition through to post-tropical, which essentially just means it's an area of low pressure, but it is going to bring some moisture with it, much needed moisture through parts of Central. Let's take a look at the future tracker and time that out for you. As we head through the morning hours on Wednesday, that's when we're likely going to see some of that heavier rain, well below warning criteria, but still could be heavy at times through the day on, or at least through the morning hours on Wednesday. And then that moves through quite quickly. By Thursday, it looks like we're going to see some nicer weather into the afternoon, and then continue into Friday as well as an area of low pressure, or rather an area of high pressure sets up, keeping things quiet. Although it will be unsettled across Labrador. Another area of low pressure will move through for you, and that's going to bring that chance of showers right through into Saturday as well. So as far as amounts go, this is an early indication, but we could see some pockets of 20 to 30 millimeters of rain by the time Wednesday evening rolls around. A little bit heavier rain as well through southeastern Labrador. As you can see, some of the models there pointing at between 30 to as much as 50 millimeters of rain as we get into Wednesday night, into Thursday morning as well. And that will generally continue as far as that unsettled weather for you. But Wednesday, like I said, will be very humid. It'll be actually the more humid of the 2 days. We're going to see temperatures again into the high 20s through Central, 29, even 30 degrees, but it'll feel more like 35 to 37 as your afternoon highs, and then going to continue to see those temperatures in the teens across Labrador. We'll start to see a change for that on Thursday when things settle down a little bit, but temperatures will drop back down Thursday night. Thursday afternoon for the island. So back into the 20s, we'll see a little bit of relief from that humidity, but it will return as we get into the weekend again, back up into the 20s, 21, 22 degrees Friday and Saturday, looking nice at this point for eastern area. Same thing through central Newfoundland, although a little bit warmer, 25 to 27 degrees. Going to keep that in there for western Newfoundland as well, as that ridge of high pressure sets up and keep things quite warm. And then for eastern Labrador, you're going to stay in the 20s as well. Saturday is when we'll start to see some more unsettled conditions. And then finally, a pretty nice stretch of weather for western Labrador, about 20 degrees to end off the weekend. I wanted to share this photo. This is Clarke's Beach, the sunset there. Dale Brow shared that one with us. And if you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Well, I think Montrealers are hoping that the sun isn't going to set on their playoff chances in this Stanley Cup run, because it's been a long time since they've won one.
It has, and things didn't go the Canadiens' way over the weekend. The series is now tied 2-2 with Las Vegas, but Peter, the Habs have spent the entire playoffs surprising experts.
Yeah, the CBC's Valeria Corimanocchio spoke with some big fans ahead of last night's game.
It's no surprise Montreal has a case of Habs fever, and fans aren't shy about it.
Probably going to get the goalie mask of Ken Dryden, one of the greatest goalie of the Canadian and Montreal.
This downtown Montreal tattoo shop is offering free Habs tattoos on game days during the playoffs. Fans lined up hours ahead of Game 4 tonight.
Atmosphere right now is actually, I would say, fire. And we weren't expecting Montreal to go this far. But after we beat Toronto, I was like, all right, we're going all the way. We're winning the cup.
That excitement has also poured over to some local businesses. Hard hit by the pandemic, the Canadiens' playoff run has given this souvenir shop a boost.
So I noticed the sales 5 to 10% increase because of the Canadian qualification of the Canadiens for the semifinal.
Hours before puck drop, fans popped by the Bell Centre. Some among the lucky few to have tickets, others just to show their support.
I think this is their season, and there's some magic around this, around this year. I mean, everything is just gelling together at the right time.
Even with head coach Dominique Ducharme sitting out after testing positive for COVID-19, fans feel confident the Habs will survive their battle with the Golden Knights and reach the finals for the first time in nearly 30 years.
The whole city's sitting on the edge of their seat waiting to see the city explode, because believe me, every time they win and every time they will win, the city goes nuts.
Fans are hoping the Habs can dig deep for the next game in Vegas. Right now, the series is tied 2-2. Valeria Corey Minocchio, CBC News, Montreal.
All right, before we finish up, Peter, earlier in the show we were talking about some confusion around second dose vaccinations, but you have some new information, right?
Yeah, actually just got an update from Eastern Health. They say that 25,000 additional appointment spots were added today, but they were all Moderna, most of those at the new site at the Glacier. As more doses arrive, they're going to add more appointments, so they're telling people if you didn't get one today, keep checking back. And what about young people who need to get Pfizer because they can't get Moderna? Well, they say they're working on a process to make sure that there are spots available for them, so we'll have to stay tuned for details on that.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you everyone at home for watching tonight.
Have a great night.